Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another photo mishmash. This one being broadcast live August 26th, 2020. I say that with such emphasis because I can't believe we are at the very tail end of August, September next week. It's just crazy how fast stuff has flown by. We've talked about that before. This is going to be a great show, though, because we've got to come back and talk about the R5 some more. The overheating controversy, how much of it is real? Is it actually overheating? Or is this just completely engineered by Canon to protect their cinema line? And how do we feel about that as consumers? So we'll be chatting about that. We've got your photos to review and give you tips and tricks in Lightroom. And I've got a bunch of other stuff, including brand new, just announced backpack that I want to share some features with that's pretty cool. And I'll have a full review about that soon. But I'm really excited because we've got a new co-host stepping in Steve's absence today. He had a conflict of interest. No, that's not what I want to say.
Maybe it was. Maybe it was.
Is he on another show right now? Is he just thinking up about shooting the houses?
He's doing Mish or something. It's some other Mish.
But I'm so excited to welcome Krystal Weir, photographer, also in the Georgia area, in the town of Columbus, stepping in for Steve. Thank you so much, Krystal.
Hi, thanks for having me. So excited to be here.
Awesome. And so, we'll get a little bit of your backstory in a few minutes, I think. But let's jump right over to David Carr, see what he's up to. We've got some camera gear in the background, so I'm excited to hear a little bit more about that, David. And then we'll come back to Krystal and find out who you are and why you're on the show.
Sounds good.
Yeah, well, I promise this is not props. I'm not trying to look cooler than I actually am, which is not that cool. But I've been working on a video. I've teased for a while now that I was going to do a video on this new 500mm lens that I seem to talk about on every episode. But I'm really excited about it. I'd like to get a video out. I'd like to tell people my thoughts on it, real world kind of user experience. But I am finding that making these videos is not. It's not something you just do in a couple hours. I mean, it can, especially when you haven't done it a lot. And I've done a few. But I'm trying to kind of up the game a little bit and make them better. And so it's a tedious process. And sometimes I just kind of throw in the towel and do something else. So, but I've been busy. I've been shooting a good bit as well. So, and I've got more shoots coming up. So that's always exciting. So, yeah, but I will get the video out. I said something the other day about it. And somebody on Penn on the Facebook page was like, been working on that video, David? And I was like, yeah, I've been working on it. So I started working on it the next day.
All right. Maybe chat room, and welcome to the chat room. Thank you all for joining us today. Maybe you can suggest some good titles for David.
That'd be great.
This thing, yeah. It looks like great stuff in the background. So, real quick, let's hit some stuff that's been going on. What's up in the world of Photo Enthusiast Network, which if you're watching this show and you're not part of the Photo Enthusiast Network, it really is a fantastic educational resource and community that you all should be part of. And you can join for the first year for a ridiculously low $24. So check that out. First up, I want to mention Brian Scanlon has come back and written another one of his, I'm going to call it famous Tuesday tips. He is actually a member of the community and has occasionally shared some tips with all of us. And they are routinely absolutely fantastic. And I'm not at all jealous that when he writes tips, he gets multiple emails. Actually, I don't even know if we've passed them all back to you, Brian. Multiple emails from people saying how much they love this tip, how well it speaks to them. And this latest one is really about getting out and exploring. And I know right now we're all still kind of suffering through this pandemic at various levels and restricting our travel. But he makes a really good point in case for travel and not have to be something beyond down the street or around the block, something very local. And the kind of the power and the, I want to say healing of that. I don't know if healing is the right word, but it's just good for you. It's just really good for you. And Brian, I don't know if you're actually in the chat room. I haven't seen your name yet, but I'll just say that last paragraph makes me feel like we are connected. We're brothers from another mother. Just there's a little bit of geeky mapness in there. And I love that so much. So
I can see that.
Yeah. Krystal, your mic might be rubbing on your shirt a little. See if
We adjust here.
There you go. Other things real quick. I just released yesterday a review of the smart remote. And honestly, I think most of my audience doesn't really care about a very drone specific, expensive $750 remote. But if you're serious about droning, this can make a huge difference. And I highly recommend it if you don't mind paying the price, and also the price of losing some portability, because it's big and it's heavy, but oh, it's so much better. Oh, that's off screen. It's so much better than the standard remote in so many ways. And I have a little fun in that video, a couple of little skits. My dumb other half named Todd makes an appearance in a couple of skits. So my acting abilities aren't great, but I keep it short and sweet. So you can go watch that
That's
to
great.
learn a little bit more. And, you know, I don't think I'm going to be able to show it well, but this is what Mindshift announced just a few days ago. It's an early Kickstarter, so then you can't even support the Kickstarter yet. You can just like sign up to be interested. But it is the Rotation 180. I've been using this bag for about 2 months now. And I'll tell you, I thought it was gimmicky because I tried their version 1 years ago at some trade show. They're very excited about it. They said, here, try this on. I tried it on and I was like, it's got too many fiddly parts. It just doesn't seem worth it. But this bag is really, really nice. This is I think it's like a 30 size, 30 liter. But what happens is the waist belt slides out and then it can just open up and give you access to your gear while you're wearing it.
Great.
Which is cool. Again, it's not going to work for everybody, but that's the main feature of the bag. I'll have a full kind of review out about it soon. But I like it. And if you're interested, you should go sign up at the Kickstarter because there will be a deal for that early access stuff.
It looks nice.
It does look pretty cool.
Yeah. And one last thing, and then I'll take a break from talking. Sometimes I feel like I talk too much.
That's all right. It's your show, man.
Right.
We're just along for the ride.
I mentioned this in the Pen group earlier this week. I was working with Topaz Denoise, which we're a big fan of. Krystal, do you use any of the Topaz products?
I have not tried it.
Yeah.
I have not.
You know, it always for me was like, hey, they look kind of nice, but I don't think the benefits are enough to outweigh like the whole additional workflow plus the extra money.
Sure.
But the latest versions, I have to say, I'm very impressed with. But I've run into an issue with that Topaz Denoise, and that is that I just was running the Denoise program, not even at like some extra strength settings or anything, just kind of normal settings, and all of a sudden, in my image, a small black hole opened up. I'll show you here. Let me see if I can get that screenshot up.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's actually going to be really hard to see, I think, because it's so dark. But we'll get it on the screen here in a second. There it is. And share my screen. Right there. So side by side, this is 2 low light images. You can see on the one that, is it in the shot? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
There's just this black hole with these really weird, colorful artifacts that opened up around it.
Crazy.
That's odd.
It is a little crazy. So I wrote them and I was kind of happy to like, I need to check out their support because it's always nice to really know what's going on behind the program as far as, you know, are the people there and helpful. What they said is they said this is a known issue that we're working on.
Okay.
And if you just adjust your sharpening or your denoise settings just a tiny bit left or right, that will vanish again.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought they were going to come out with another piece of software that was like black hole remover or, you know, for $69.95, but it's only $39.95 until, you know, the end of this week. So
you should get into marketing. Carr.
Yeah, exactly.
Good plan. I like it. So I haven't tried that yet, but I'm going to, and they said they hope in their next release that they will have tweaked the algorithm. But I just wanted to mention that because it was kind of hiding a little bit. And you know, if I was sending this off to print, I might not notice that because my denoising is often one of the last steps, or my sharpening is one of the last steps. So it's worthwhile anytime you're sending something off to print with whatever you're working with, give it one really good final look over.
Yeah, I mean, that it could have been something, you know, a smaller little area, but still that would ruin a big print. And so I'm glad you were able to see it, being that it was center and pretty large, but still, I mean, yeah, it's, but I do think Topaz is, it seems like they're a company that it really is willing to tackle whatever needs to be fixed, needs to be improved upon. I mean, even just in the time that I've owned Sharpen AI, they've updated it a couple times and it's improved every time. You know, it's still slow, but I think it's just the amount of computing power it takes to do what it does. But yeah, I mean, good for them for recognizing it and definitely working on a solution.
Yeah, it was nice. And I did hear back within, I think it was within 12 hours, which is also nice to have that kind of speed. Yeah. I don't know if people saw while I was sharing my screen, but the Facebook side of things seems to be broken. So if, Roy, I don't know if you could put in on the Facebook group that it doesn't seem like we're streaming to Facebook right now. So folks should come to photorec.tv/live to watch, which is where they can. So, all right. Let's come back to you, Krystal. So first off, I'm just really excited to have another voice on the show from time to time. And also, I don't know if anybody noticed, but Steve, David, and I are all dudes. And it's nice to have some alternative perspectives sometimes.
Yeah.
Even though I wear capris, I am a dude. I don't know if Krystal, you caught that.
I did.
And you still agreed to be on the show.
Yes,
See, Steve?
yes.
I think actually that's why Steve's not on the show.
That's right. He's had enough with these capri pants.
All right. So Krystal, you are a mom and a photographer. You are, as I said, in the Georgia-based area. I'm going to pull up your website here. Why don't you share a little bit of your story? Why I share this, and you know, how did you get into photography? How did you arrive at taking such beautiful pictures?
After my daughter was born, which was almost 8 years ago, I've always loved taking photos, but you know, you use your point and shoots, your phones, and I just wanted better quality, and I wanted to have better quality so that I could print better photos for my kids. And so I asked my husband, I was like, I think I may be interested in getting a real camera. And he was like, go for it. So I got a T4i. That was my first camera in 2013. And I mean, it really just took off from there. And then I found your YouTube page not too long after that. And I've just been I wouldn't say grinding, but I've been just like practicing pretty much daily since then. And I think, I think from starting from in 2013 till now, I've just learned so much from watching YouTube, from taking classes, being mentored. So it's just grown from a hobby to like a passion, I guess. And my kids are my main focus. I do photograph other people, but my kids are my main focus. And I just love, it's comfortable. I feel more inspired by them, just letting them be them and just kind of they're letting me into their world. And I just like to photograph it in a beautiful way.
Yeah, these are amazing.
They really are. You're a fantastic photographer. I've admired your work for a really long time. I've also admired your beautiful children for quite some while. They're just such cute kids. I want to ask you, you know, as a parent, you know, my kids went through a phase where they would not cooperate if the camera was out. It was a little frustrating being a photographer that wanted to capture these cute moments. Have you experienced that, or have your kids just been golden childs?
No, my son, he's 10. And so he's going through that right now. Like if I pull out the camera, he starts acting a little silly, like plays it up a little bit. Or he'll tell me straight out, like, I don't want my picture taken. And I just have to, I have to respect it. So, but I try not to be too intrusive. I try to like, you know, come at it from like me just kind of observing what they're doing or incorporate it while we're playing or whatever. So I try not to be too annoying about it, but I can tell when they're getting frustrated. So then I just put it away. Like it's that simple. But my daughter, she's the one you'll see probably most often. She's embracing it. She's 8, and so she likes to play dress up. She likes dresses. She likes to. We'll have a one-on-one time. So she enjoys it. And my baby, like he doesn't really have a say so right now. He's just there, and he just loves it wherever I am. So.
Yep. And have you taken any of those lessons with photographing your own kids when you're photographing others? That kind of like the patience and the non-obtrusiveness.
Right. I have. It's definitely helped me going, because I'm very much an introvert. So when I'm out photographing other people, I try to pretend like as if I'm photographing my own family. So it makes it easier for me.
They're really great moments that you've captured of your children, because I mean, I have 2 boys myself, and I've taken most of the photos over the years, at least like on family vacations and things like that. And you have a certain quality to these that's very photojournalistic. It looks like something in an ad for in a magazine. It's like that professional looking, and they're just pictures of your children. And not to diminish that, but just to say that, like, it's not like all of that was hired work or something where it was like you were really under the gun. It's just really, you really just delivered a great image and something that will be so timeless for your kids. I think it's really, really great work. Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. And I love when we were looking through your website, you get some just fantastic examples of backlit photography where the light's coming through your daughter's hair is just fantastic. I really, really like. I'm going to pull up your Instagram real quick. Of course, your Instagram handle is right there on the screen, and it's linked down below. Also, David Carr's is as well, both those folks. So if you're watching this show, it would be really nice of you to go click over and follow both of these folks as a nice way to thank them for their time today. Your Instagram is well worth following. But now I want to talk a little bit more about Click. So Click Magazine is the magazine front to a organization of female photographers. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And so you recently had a cover image, and you are accepted as a Click Pro. Tell me a little bit more. For women watching this, and I do have to brag a little, for whatever reason, my percentage of female YouTube watching percentage, I said percentage twice, is a little bit higher than average. Every once in a while when we get together at trade shows, we all talk about our YouTube stats behind the scenes, and I'm pretty happy about that. So speak to the female followers about what Click is and whether or not they might want to consider joining.
Okay, Click Pro. It's like you said, it's women focused, female led, and it's an organization that's pretty much, they want to amplify women voices in the photography community, and so it's a great place to network. It's a great place to find inspiration, find other creative female photographers, network, and there's opportunities to teach, there's opportunities to mentor, there's opportunities to they have Clickaway conference every year. And I haven't been yet, but I hope to in the future. It's just a great community of women photographers, and they have great access for networking. And there is an application process. And the process is you have to submit 150 images in a portfolio, and you are critiqued in 7 different categories, I believe, and you're given a score, and you have to get a certain score to become Click Pro. And I did that recently and was accepted.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that. That really is, as we talk about often in the pen community, getting feedback on your work at multiple levels is great, but at the higher level where there is kind of this criteria that people are working from in a very fair and organized ways is just fantastic.
Yeah.
So that's really awesome.
Can I ask a technical question? Because a lot of the folks that are in the message board here, or the forum, the chat, whatever we call it, a lot of us we're clued into the technical stuff, and we like numbers, and I don't, on this show, we don't like to focus too much on that stuff, but it is important. And I'm curious what kind of lenses you're using for the most part, because they all look very beautiful, a lot of good bokeh, very like they look very like prime lens kind of photos, and I'm just curious what you use.
Yeah, I have all primes. My most used up until recently was the Sigma 24 because I like the wide shots. And then I got the Tamron 35, 1.4, and I've been using that pretty much exclusively.
Nice.
But this picture that's up now, I rented the RF 50 millimeter 1.2. That was my first time ever using it, and I pretty much fell in love with it. So I'm going to be saving my pennies for that.
Yeah, that's
nice.
Great.
Yeah.
Nice. So you are a Canon photographer, and if you're shooting on RF glass, I have to guess that you're the EOS R or R5.
I actually just got the R5.
And it hasn't turned into flames in your hand?
No, it hasn't. Only because I don't use it for videography that much. I've only been testing the waters, so I haven't. It's not exclusively for that. So
cool.
I've enjoyed it.
Well, congratulations on the purchase on the new camera.
That is exciting. So did you what did you move from? And David Carr, thank you so much for asking the gear question. It was in the back of my mind, but I started to forget about it. So I really appreciate
that's fine.
that.
No, I was just very curious. They all have a nice they have that prime like quality to them, and I figured that was probably what you were using. But.
Yeah, I moved from the 5D Mark IV.
Okay. Yeah. And I know, but this is early still. You've had it for what, a couple days, a week or something. Yeah. What are your first impressions as moving from the 5D Mark IV to the R5, from DSLR to mirrorless? What do you think?
I feel like this is what I've been waiting for. Because I've been very tempted to switch over to Sony only because they had in-body stabilization, they had all the focus points, they had the eye autofocus. So, but I've been just a loyal Canon person, so I've been waiting it out. So I feel like it has everything that I wanted. So that's why I made the purchase. And my 5D Mark IV, it had quit on me in December. I had to get the shutter replaced, so I felt like it was time to upgrade.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good sign. That's a good sign.
That's great.
So I do think IAF from any of the manufacturers is game changing for portraits, especially of smaller children who are not always, are not always following a straight line when they're walking and you're trying to get a picture.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, I did family photos the other day, and it was a game changer for me. Taking just photos of children and having the eye autofocus and all these other features you mentioned that are kind of exclusive to the mirrorless world. It's the stuff that when people are reluctant to go mirrorless, I'm like, you just wait. When you see what you can do with these things, it just changes your whole approach. It's really nice.
Yeah. And Krystal, how do you feel about the optical viewfinder to the EVF switch?
It took me just not long to adjust to it, but it's just so clear and crisp that I just loved it. I loved it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And that's one of the things by waiting a bit to switch to mirrorless, you skipped over all of the bad EVFs because when they did first come out, there were some that were pretty low resolution, but the R5 has got a great one. Yeah, good. And as you said, it hasn't burst into flames. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I think we're at the part of the show where we're going to dive into talking about some of the pictures that you all sent in. Now, Pen members, you've been doing too good a job at submitting photos. I don't want you to start doing a bad job. I'm not saying that, but you just have submitted so many. So just a reminder, one, we've been reviewing as many as possible during the show, but we also need to keep the show to a reasonable length. And two, I put out this morning a video where I did a little catch up. It was just me sitting here talking about the photos that we hadn't gotten to review and critique and share some Lightroom tips and tricks on any of the previous shows. And embarrassingly, I found a couple that I just missed. There were a couple submitted back in March. So if you're like, that Toby guy, he never got to my picture, go check this video. It's 40 minutes long, and I covered all of the pictures, except I discovered right before the show, somebody had sent a couple pictures in a zip file, and so those had never got picked up in Lightroom. So we're going to get those today. But again, we might have too many to get through today because we're going to try to, as I say, we keep this short. I go back and I do the table of contents where I time out each section and put a little clickable link for the past shows. And even when we say we're going to keep it short, this segment is regularly 30 minutes long. And those of you who get your images reviewed, I know you really like it, but the broader audience doesn't like 30 full minutes. So we're walking that fine line there.
Is there any way to get like a little countdown clock for each photo? Like you spend 3 minutes on each one. Go.
That's actually a I think that's a really interesting idea, and I'll explore some options for that coming up.
I mean, obviously sometimes we do get hung up on a photo that we're all we're trying to figure out what we need to do to it, but it's Thank you guys for enduring the long discussions.
Yeah. All right, so here we go. First up, Kevin O'Gara's got these 3 daisies.
Okay.
And it's already matted with a little orange stroke or yellow stroke that matches kind of the center of the daisy. I really like the crop to this. Kevin, I think this is a fantastic image.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it looks nice.
I maybe would come in and what happens if we bring the whites up just a little bit to make the petals themselves just a little whiter, a little cleaner looking. I'm going to hit the J key. I'm watching for red to make sure I'm not blowing any of that out. I don't see any. So just brought them up a little bit. And I don't know, Krystal or David, the petals start to fall off in focus here a little bit. I think that could be an artistic choice, or you could say, I'd like to see it at a higher depth of field and a little sharper. Do either of you have an opinion there?
I feel like that's what he was going for, because I see his f-stop is f5. So I'm assuming he wanted all the petals in focus. So, I mean, for me, I like it, but if that's what he was going for, I'd just say if he would up the aperture next time to get all those in focus.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really bother me so much. If the center of each flower was out of focus, obviously that would be a problem. But almost like when you do a portrait, if the eyes are in focus, but the ears fall a little bit out of focus, that can sometimes be an artistically pleasing thing. So it doesn't bother me so much. I kind of wonder what it would look like if the background was a little brighter. Just it looks like there's a lot of nice texture back there. I don't know if bringing up some shadows or something. I'm just curious. It may hurt the photo. I don't know, but just a little bit. I mean, none of this is like you did a bad job. It's just suggestions or thoughts. What would it look like? But I think you framed it well and it's exposed well. It's a beautiful shot.
It's really nice, Kevin. It's a great shot. All right. Thank you. Moving on. Whitney Sunrise. This is from Jeremy. And let's see, he sent a DNG in that he edited. Here's straight out of camera.
Okay.
And then he made some edits to it. And my phone is helpfully suggesting search engines results. I'm going to channel Steve here a little bit. What do you guys think about black and white?
It could be cool.
And the reason I go there is there isn't a whole lot of interesting color in this. We've got these kind of cool tones and warm tones, which is somewhat interesting, but not enough to really captivate my attention. And I think when we go black and white, it feels a little bit more that we're focused on the textures in this image.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing I would say is I'm wondering, like, depending on how large the image is as far as resolution, to me, once you get below those highlights of where the sunlight is hitting, once you get below that into all the rocks, it doesn't seem to do much for me as far. It's not as exciting. The real beauty is all the cliffs with the light hitting them in the sky. And so, I mean, I don't know if there is enough resolution to kind of hone in a little more on that, but just felt a little bit like it kind of got repetitive below those brighter parts, in my opinion. Yeah, I hear you. I struggle with that a little bit because there's part of this that really nicely shows kind of the epic verticalness. Yeah, that's true. There's a scale factor, yeah.
But it does just kind of, it's a lot of the same stuff, a jumble of rocks. And so I do think when you come up, you really start to focus in on these kind of that play of the shadow side and the light side.
Yeah.
One other thing I noticed here, Jeremy, on the DNG under effects, you did add a fairly heavy vignette. And I don't love it in the sky. It's a little smudgy looking. Down here, I think it helps us kind of narrow in on the part of the image. But I think the sky is a little bit too strong. So if you ever want to do a vignette on part of the image, my trick is just get the brush tool, slate exposure or shadows down, and then literally just kind of brush into the corners to kind of create that vignette.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. We're going to move on. And Kelly has a fun image that I really want to know a little bit more about. Kelly, what was this device that you all used? This is cool.
That is really neat.
Oh my gosh.
We've got some color changing light that you kind of like drug out there and then swung around your body to do this kind of orb effect. There's a guy that sells these like light balls that you can swing around and create these cool orbs. I don't know if you purchased that or if it's something else, but it's pretty well done. And I think you really thought, about the composition here too. If we get that crop tool, kind of have this nice leading line out to here, framed underneath the car or maybe truck because it's so high up. There's a lot to really like here.
It's really.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I'm a sucker for color, so I love it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. What if we, this is a unique image, so I'm not sure, honestly, right off what I do with it, but I'm going to do a graduated filter across the sky and just make it a little more blue, a little less brown tone, somewhere around there. But that is all that I can really suggest, other than maybe now I see this little bit of some shiny bit catching a little light there. Take that out. So we really only have this trail here.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Man. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Kelly says 3 images.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, and it's a train going by in the background.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was a train. I'm curious, just looking at it, kind of small on my screen. What would it look like if you brought the top of the image down a little bit? I'll almost do a little more of like a 16:9 or pano kind of deal. Mm-hmm. I love the sky. I love that you see the stars, but the real action is all kind of, below that. And so it might be cool to just hint at the sky, putting that train in the upper third. For me, that's probably where I would end up if I was editing my own photo, but I don't know. I could take it or leave it because it's a cool image one way or another.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion because then I feel like I'm really on the level with the ball now. I know that cropping it doesn't actually change our viewpoint, but it really just forces it to be higher in the image.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's hard when you have an image where there's so many cool things happening and you want to show them all. And it's okay to show them all, but you really want to make sure that whatever the main thing is, that you're able to kind of take the viewer there every time.
Yeah, very cool, Kelly. She says it's actually 3 pictures: the tail, the ball, and the train going by. So that's, when you set it up on a tripod, it's nice to do that. Very cool. Okay, Diane has these oleander flowers. I only know that because that's the name of the file. And I love the soft pink tones.
Yeah.
Very pretty.
It's very nice.
Beautiful.
What do we think about this bud here?
It's a good question.
What happens if we come in and we have just kind of flowers? Are we losing too much?
Well, I liked the branch leading to the flowers, but I don't know if it's worth like removing that whole bud just in Photoshop or something.
Right. Yeah.
That's something I do. Remove it in Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of cropping in.
Yeah, I think it has good. I think you get too tight on the flowers if you just crop in. And I, of course, do recommend Photoshop as well, but I'm being lazy and not waiting for it. So we're just doing a quick
it makes sense. Just to kind of get an idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks much better.
Yeah.
I think so.
What if, I don't know if it needs it, but what if you threw a graduated radial filter over these, inverted, with just a little more texture and clarity to make them pop? And then let's do one outside, lower texture and clarity, just to kind of further emphasize that softness there. But otherwise, Diane, I think you've done a really nice job. Let's look at the before and the after. Other than taking that out, my edits were pretty subtle.
Yeah, but I like. Yeah, I think it's good. I like it.
Okay, Nice, Diane. Thank you for submitting. Kevin Walks got this lady horse. This seems like Colorado, Kevin. It just feels to me like Colorado. Krystal, you used to live in Colorado. Does it look like that?
It does.
Okay.
It definitely does.
Familiar.
Yeah. But you know, I don't want to sound harsh, Kevin, but especially in the catch-up review, you had a sunrise or sunset. I don't remember which, but it was an epic, beautiful shot. This feels a little bit more like a snapshot. I mean, we do have this cute moment between the girl and her horse, or the woman and her horse. But, you know, this paddock is kind of messy. The sky it looks like it gets interesting way up here. But down here, it just, you know, it's just the sky. So I don't know. What if we adjust this crop, make this more of a portrait orientation?
Yeah.
And just come in a little bit tighter on this moment.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think you're onto something there. And again, you know, sometimes we don't know what the actual resolution of a photo is, and if you could actually crop something this much and still have a usable image. But sometimes we're suggesting these things just for like when you're shooting, what to think of, like, because you do have this moment with this horse and this person here, and it's like that's kind of the subject, you know. And so there's a way to have that be the subject and still hint at where you are without having to show too much of where you are.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. All right, Pam Case. Pam, I see a little comment here that's very exciting, but I have to ask, Pam, why are your stars look like little kidney beans? What's happening here? It's a mystery. I think Pam is in the chat. So yeah, I think there's a lot to like here, but a couple of suggestions. One, you've got some landscape. I would love to see a little bit more. Unless you're hiding something kind of messy down here in the foreground, I'd love to have a complete view of the silhouette of the landscape all the way across, especially since we have just that little bit of a hill peeking up right there. And I think you could get away with less sky. You all agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Let's go 16:9 again. You suggested that on another one, David, and maybe even this one. Maybe come in even a little bit tighter.
Unless she was really trying to fully show the Big Dipper, but I don't know if.
Oh, good catch! It is sitting right there, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, but I'm with you. I definitely would love to see just a little more foreground, because it's nice to have some foreground, but it's hard when it drops off and then comes back a little bit and then drops off again, and so.
Yeah. And then I know I've worked with a couple of different folks who captured pictures of the comet, and we're kind of bummed that their pictures weren't, you know, the comet was a little faint as it is here. And, you know, it really depends a lot on where in the world you were shooting and what time, you know, how early on in that kind of progress of the comet you captured it. But you could come in with a brush if you wanted to try. Highlights up, whites up, and I'm going to zoom the Z key and zoom in really other way, really tight on that comet for a minute. And then just kind of paint. Let's see what happens. Let's see if we can just make it show up a little bit more. And it did have this other tail that kind of came off that way. But once you've painted, then you can start to raise your different sliders. If you don't see anything at first. Oh yeah, wait. And let's zoom back out to something normal now and see if we've made it stand out a little bit more without looking too fake. Yeah. I think so. This tail curved a little bit more than it actually did in real life, so you might want to adjust that. But cool. Thank you, Pam. Figure out why your stars are kidney beans, though. We want those to be tight little pinpoints.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. So Chris has this photo, and she commented on Facebook. She said, I'm not going to be able to watch live today. It's okay, Chris. I know you have lives. But she's acknowledging that this is a very kind of common spot. You know, if you go to Yosemite, you've probably photographed from the spot. And how to make something, you know, unique from something photographed so often. And the first thing I'll say to that is, yeah, it is photographed awesome, but it's epic. and it's your photo, and don't necessarily feel like you need to make it look very different from many other nice photos from the same scene. That's kind of the first thing I'd say to you.
Yeah, and I will say, like, and I'm not quite as familiar with Yosemite as you are, Toby, or some folks might be. I mean, I've been there, but this, it took me a second to realize it was Yosemite, and it's not just the classic tunnel view shot. It's got this, I remember shooting in this same spot, but don't sell yourself short. It's a pretty nice photo there for sure.
Yeah. Krystal, have you ever been to Yosemite?
I've never been. I would
Okay.
love to go, but I've never been.
Nice. It's a gorgeous park. Just absolutely fantastic. And it's one of those things where you could say, yeah, I can see why this is an epic park, and so popular, and thankful for our, the people back in history that decided to set this apart.
Right.
It's hard not to think Ansel Adams when I see Yosemite, and when I look at midday shots that don't have like epic, colorful skies and things, to think about maybe black and white.
Mm-hmm.
So let's switch over to black and white here and see what we get.
Oh, nice.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Now I will, I'll let you all know. I worked on this earlier a little bit because I was curious kind of how it would respond. This is a D&G, and we have Chris's edits already embedded in it, which I love that when you all do that. It's nice. A couple of things. One, I love the clarity in the water here. I think I'd like to emphasize that a little bit more. Graduated filter up from the bottom, and bringing up, let's zero this out, up texture and clarity, and a little dehaze. Just kind of cuts through that water, and just makes it seem like you had a circular polarizer on, or if you did, makes it even stronger. And that's a great way to kind of cut through some of the glare, and bring out a little bit more saturation in spaces. Now, go ahead.
I said, oh yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And then it looks like, Krys, you had a graduated filter coming down from the top with a little bit of dehaze running. I think that was a good call. I'm going to get a brush, and bring dehaze down, which is up, a little bit more, and just brush onto the rocks and see if we can cut through.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Yeah. And one other thing that I would play with in a black and white like this is, once you go black and white, you have this, your color HSL panel becomes a black and white panel, and you can come down in here and play with the kind of the luminance values of different things. So if you play with the green, you can actually almost start to get a more infrared looking image, really make the green grass and the leaves really start to pop a bit. And then you just kind of play with each of these sliders and see if anything happens, like aqua. There doesn't seem to be any aqua in this image at all. Blue.
Yeah, blue does quite a bit.
Yeah, as well. And also yellow is where you can kind of punch that up a little bit more. I don't know.
There's one other thing I would do is just in the bottom right corner, there's a highlight that is just something sticking up in the water there, maybe just a rock. But for whatever reason, when I just kind of view it small, it's distracting to me. So one thing I recommend doing sometimes, folks, is like when you're looking at your image, a lot of times you're looking at it big on the screen. It's like taking up most of your screen. Shrink it way down to like Instagram size and take a look at the whole thing where you don't really see the detail. You just see what's sticking out. And sometimes you'll find little things like that might need to be addressed. That's just my take on that. So,
yeah, I like it. Great. All right. Thanks, Krys. Okay, we're going to move on. Robert typically submits some pretty epic landscapes. I love to see work kind of outside what we normally see from our pen members. A wedding. Now, Krystal and David, you both photograph people, either your own children or other people fairly often. You got any thoughts on this?
Go ahead, Krystal.
I mean, I like it. I like the connection, because when I look at a photo, the first thing I look at it through feelings and how it makes me feel, and then it's technical. But yeah, I like the connection. I like the details. I don't know. I think I would have photographed it maybe use the rule of thirds instead of centered. I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, this might be a case for a square crop where you're just really focusing on them. It's tough when you're delivering wedding photos. Sometimes they want everything to be 2x3 or whatever. But I sometimes will crop things. I use my artistic sensibilities in the crop. I'm like, you know what? This is the moment. This is what I want to see is in this square. And so, but I'm with you. Maybe a little rule of thirds. But it's a great little moment. It's just I think it needs a little more pop in the processing. And I don't know if that's just brightening it and maybe a little texture. I don't know. You have to play around, but there's a photograph there to really be polished. It's just polishing it that needs to be done, I think. So
yeah. Krystal, I love your kind of the feeling of it. And it is just a fantastic moment. These two folks gazing into each other's eyes. The only thing, I agree with everything everybody said. F6.3 would seem like a great aperture, at 43, but the bokeh in the foreground is a little soft. And I don't know. I think I want sharpness from front to just on the other side of them. So I'd watch out for that, Robert. And the only other thing that I noticed, maybe I'm being too picky, but we have just this bits of tree coming up the backside of the gentleman. And I think you could clone that out with a little bit of work, or just shift position in the future, just a tiny bit.
Sure.
Yeah. All right.
Can I ask you one more thing?
Oh, absolutely.
Sorry. Just the skin tone just looks a little off to me. I don't know if it's my screen, but
it might be a little bit warmer than I think we would want. Yeah. Krystal, do you have any? I know as portrait photographers, skin tone and getting it right is really important. Do you have any tricks or tips to pass on how you make sure that you're nailing skin tones?
The white balance is usually key for me. If your white balance is off, the skin tones are going to be all wacky. So I try to make sure I try to nail it in camera using the white balance. I use Kelvin, so I'll adjust if I need to. But I mean, that's usually what I use.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you eyeballing and just determining, what Kelvin number you want, or are you a great gray card?
No, I'm eyeballing it.
Okay. Nice. Yeah,
that's
that
cool.
comes with some experience. Nice. All right. We got Adam Beck's I'm going to call it epic panorama print. I can't remember how many images this is stacked. But that's what it is. It's a series of stacked images, one on top of the other, to give this kind of long view of the Milky Way.
Cool.
And
I like it.
Yeah, it's neat. Adam, I think you should get a print of this. I think having a long, narrow print is unique and interesting, and put it on the wall. I really not sure I have any kind of suggestions for this. Little things like here's a little bit of a shadow peeking in on the side here, and there's a little buoy over here, as David Carr was saying. You really want to watch out for those little things that might grab your attention.
Yeah, the only thing I'm wondering is it's hard for me to tell, but in the foreground, is that just a bunch of grass and then some like long shadows running across them, or is it? Okay, that's not long shadows. Okay,
yeah, it's a rock. Yeah,
it's a rock. Okay, it's so funny because I just can't tell sometimes what. Okay.
You guys are at the mercy of my outgoing internet.
No, that's okay. Well, and the way the way I arrange my screens on here on my windows. It's pretty cool. I thought it was grass, in which case I was going to say come up from the bottom, but since I know it's a rock, you could come up from the bottom a little, maybe. I don't know. It's such a cool. It's just such a cool shot, and I agree. Just take out a couple of those little things around the edges, and print the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I reduced the saturation a little bit, and then let's see if we came up a bit. It has.
I like that. I like that it's a rock. I think so much of this story here is the Milky Way. That the tree is this cool. The tree and the rock are like this cool extra feature to the photo, and so I don't know. That's kind of what I would do probably.
I like also that your tree is just to the left of the Milky Way. I feel like some people, and I've done this myself before, especially in Joshua Tree, I have experimented with putting objects kind of like anchored at the bottom of the Milky Way itself. And I don't know. I like this balance sitting next to it. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Last one. Here we go. This is Michael's Double Trouble Bees. And then I love that the file name is edit. That speaks to me. I have a few files that way, Nick, too, Mike.
Yes.
All right.
We all do.
So, and Mike submitted a fantastic hummingbird that I got to in the catch-up review. And now we've got these two bumblebees. We're just honeybees hanging out in this flower. This is very nice.
Yeah.
Let's see, F4, 105 millimeters working this close. I'd love to see the texture in the back of this wing of this bumblebee here. So I'd love a little bit more depth of field.
Yes.
But other than that,
I mean, I shoot with a macro sometimes. I'm assuming this is, well, that's a 24 to 105. Okay. So it's not a macro.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
I was thinking it was, I didn't realize it was. It is tricky because a lot of times when you're that close to a subject and you're going for like a macro type look, whether you're using a macro lens or not, you have to bump that f-stop up quite a bit, more than you think. You always think, oh, no, I got to have it like really low for these close-up shots. But that depth of field, I mean, those planes of focus are so close together now that things go out of focus really quickly.
Yeah. The only other thing that I'd add is just a tiny bit of hotness on the back of the wing here, and maybe the bit. And one thing that my daughter was really into macro photography for in the spring when all of the flowers were blooming and there's bees and ladybugs. And so we walked around the neighborhood and I carried with me a little diffuser. This is just like a little pocket diffuser, which was fantastic because it allowed nice soft light to filter through and kind of would reduce these hot spots. So that's something you might want to consider too. In her case, it was nice because I was her assistant. I carried that and made sure the light was good and she took the pictures. So it's tricky when you're doing it by yourself, but it is possible with a little pocket handheld diffuser. So cool. All right. Thank you so much, everybody who submitted. We got through all of those. We're back to the Brady Bunch, so let's come back to this. We got some news stories to get to now, and I think the first one is the one that I alluded to, and I'm so glad we have Krystal on because she has an R5. She can confirm that hers hasn't burst into flame, as we've said already. But we've got all of this news going on about the overheating. Krystal, were you at all concerned as a photographer, or were you savvy enough to say, it looks like this is really just affecting video people, I don't need to worry about it?
Yeah, I wasn't worried. I watched all the YouTube videos talking about it. So it made me more comfortable to see people's experiences with it. And no, I wasn't worried about the overheating because I knew I wanted it specifically for photography. And I was just like the videography part of it was bonus for me. So, but it does kind of suck to know that your camera is not working to its full potential that it's supposed to, but it didn't bother me. Well, I mean, I bought it, so obviously it didn't bother me too.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. Well, let's catch people up real quick on kind of the whole kind of arc of all of this. Canon teased early on, before really talking about this as a photo machine, video features, including the fact that it could do 8K. And, I said on this show, there's probably a catch. Either it's going to be really expensive or the clips are going to be limited in length. And there was at some point where Canon was like, here are the specs. And, there's really not any limits. But then it came out and people started getting overheating warnings pretty early. And Canon is like, well, yeah, here's this list of how long you can shoot at different kind of resolutions, including the 8K. And in some cases, it's pretty short before you get the overheating warning and the camera's like, I'm shutting down. And the length of time until you can start to film again is quite long. And I think a lot of people were like, okay, well, this is kind of expected. 8K is a huge amount of data. No one else has done that. It's a weather sealed camera. It makes sense. But then people started to notice things like even if you put the camera in a freezer, it didn't really affect the cool down period or the length of time that you could film for. And you're kind of like, well, okay, then why is it telling you it's overheating if it's not actually overheating? And some people have started to discover that if you do these little hacks, like basically pop the battery out right as you're about to end a clip. And yes, it could corrupt the video. So this isn't really perfect. You know, this isn't a resolution, but what they're saying is it's proof that this is purely a firmware issue and not actually temperature related. And then the subtext being they did this because they don't want to, as Canon has in the past, you know, kind of outclass their cinema line. If they're like, if you want an 8K camera, we got that coming real soon. It's going to be 8,000 or 10,000, but it's going to do 8K without overheating. If you want, you know, 8K with overheating, well, then you got the R5. So, and I'll just say this, at Andrew Reed at EOS HD, he runs that for him. I've met him before at press events. Seems like a really nice guy. He's really angry. I'm a little like, you know, again, I like Krystal, I approach this mostly from the photography standpoint. It doesn't really seem to affect the photographers. Although there are some instances where it can, like Krystal, if you do record a clip and you hit that overheating, it's not even going to let you take pictures for a while. But that's if you're recording a longer 8K clip. And, you know, it's just, I think we have to try to get there.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's the argument that, okay, they put this in place because they want to, that maybe even though it isn't hitting these temperatures, it could potentially in some situations then damage the camera. So they are artificially limiting it, but for a reason to protect the camera, or they're artificially limiting it for a reason to protect their pocketbooks. I don't know.
It's an interesting thought. I mean, I heard something earlier, somebody talking about the whole situation and some of the workarounds and stuff. And it's like, I can't imagine that Canon, I mean, they're a big company. They're like synonymous with everything professional photography, and to come out with immediately with like a brand new flagship camera that's supposed to like be a game changer, and to have a big asterisk next to it that, oh, well, you know, it's going to overheat and we're really, you know, and then to like suspect that, well, this is just them trying to like, you know, save the fervor for their cinema line of cameras. I don't know, man. It's like, and the whole 8K thing still gets me because I get it. Like if you were a diehard, like a filmmaker, and you're making full on motion pictures, then of course 8K is incredibly appealing. But to 98% of us who even people who do a lot of video, like, so behind me is my Nikon Z6 with an Atomos Ninja 5 or whatever on it. It's 4K and it's shooting this, you know, N-Log Nikon, super high resolution and big files. When I load them into my computer, it's like massive. Yeah. And it looks amazing. And I'm just thinking, like, I can't imagine the vast majority of people needing 8K for what they're doing. And so I'm not saying there isn't a need for it. I know there's always going to be the next thing, but like, I just think, yeah, it just feels like Canon was trying to wow everybody with this 8K thing, and now they can't even really deliver on it effectively. And so I can understand being upset about it, but who knows? Maybe there's a larger story.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And, you know, there are even some, Andrew's talking about, there's like a secret recall going on where shipments are being intercepted and turned around. So they're not calling it a recall, but they're going to do something. I think that's baloney. I don't think that's happening. I'm not saying that they might not do a recall, but yeah, it was poor planning on their part to really talk up these features and then have this be an issue. You know, and I think savvy shoppers like Krystal, you were like, I'm a photographer. This doesn't really affect me. Sure. But the sheer amount of keyword overheating in R5 out there has to be affecting some people that, you know, they say, I'm a photographer. I'm not sure. You know, everybody's talking about overheating. I don't have time to research this. I'm just going to stay away for a period of time.
Yeah, it sounds like it's not as big of an issue in the real world. Like I don't think it's going to affect as many people as it's like the Nikon having in their mirrorless cameras having the one card slot was like the big downside. And it's not like I don't hear tons of reports of how that's really been screwing people over and making their photography lives miserable. It just doesn't sound great to say it only has one card slot. And I wish it had to, but it's sometimes I think the hype is bigger than the actual reality that plays out.
Oh, I think that's true so often.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even us talking about it today, it's in some ways, I feel like, I want the hook that brings people into the show.
Sure.
But I do think it should be talked about some.
Absolutely. No, it is worth, I mean, there's enough press out there about it that it's like, this is messed up,
Yeah.
But it sounds like, I'm so glad, Krystal, that you have the camera and that you love it. And I think it's probably going to be a champion of a camera for you. So hopefully all this other white noise will just sort of dissipate over time. So,
yeah. Krystal, let me ask you: did you consider the R6, and what were the weighing factors? Because I know some of our members are kind of on that fence themselves.
I never really considered the R6. I'm not sure exactly. It was just like little things, the top screen, just like little things that the 20 megapixels, I didn't want to go down. So it was just small things for me that made me choose the R5.
Sure. Yeah. I think from as a 5D Mark IV user, I think it is difficult to go to the R6. In some ways it is an upgrade, but as you said, there are those little things. Yeah. Even with all that said, the R5 is outselling everything in Japan. They released Kappa Camera by way of Canon Watch released the sales for the first half of August. Oh, I lost my screen share somewhere. I just want to share this for two reasons. One, to see where the Canon falls on the list. And then two, how much Sony is on this list. So here is number one spot, R5. This isn't too surprising, with all of the news, even with all of the news, when a new camera comes out, it usually easily outsells anything else, especially flagship level on the market. But look at number two, Sony a7 III. That camera is now coming up on, almost 3 years old, I feel like. Sony a6400, Sony a7 III with the lens kit or kit lens. Then we've got the Z50 with the double zoom kit, which is a fantastic value. The Z50 is the Nikon's APS-C camera. A7R4. Then we've got the Z6, the D6 on this list. I guess it came out not too long ago, right?
Yeah, not too long ago. Yeah, a couple months ago.
Yeah. Then the mirrorless M50 and the Nikon D5600. It's just interesting to me that Canon, other than the R5 and the M50, isn't really on this list. Everybody, I guess Nikon, everybody else is on here at least 3 times. Canon's only got 2. I'd love to see this data for the US because I really don't think the M50 is anywhere on the US's list. But I'm curious to know. I suspect it's similar, other than some slight differences. I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know. A couple other news stories that I want to get to before we start to wrap up this show. First up, we've got, Lightroom. Did you hear this headline this week? It scared the crap out of some of our users. Luckily, most of them weren't affected. Lightroom was deleting users' photos permanently without any backups with that update that came out at the beginning of this week. Now, it was Lightroom CC. It is the Creative Cloud. I shouldn't say that. It is the mobile-friendly, lighter version. It's not the classic, not the one that most of our members, I say like 95% of our Lightroom using members are using the Lightroom Classic. But that's just kind of crappy.
My niece posted on her Instagram story today. She's a wedding photographer, a very good one. She said something about a bunch of her photos being deleted in Lightroom, and but I don't think she uses CC. I didn't think she did. I'll have to double check with her because I had not heard much about it till I didn't hear about it till that, and then knowing that it was going to be in this show, but that's not good.
No, it's not. Always focus. And this is what tricky is. The Lightroom CC, it's all the Creative Cloud. It slurps it up. It syncs it across your devices. So these were pictures that were synced And then I guess people had not backed up. So people, please back up your photos, whatever system, whatever software you're using, take time to back up your pictures. And let's just check in real quick. I'm backing up to Amazon Photos now, as well as Backblaze. And last week we checked, it had backed up 10%. It's up to 20% this week. So we're working at about 10% per week. We'll get there eventually. We'll check in from time to time. That program does still crash from time to time, which I don't really recommend. Backblaze has never really crashed on me. So I know when I go to bed at night that as I leave it backing up photos, it'll be done in the morning. Whereas I come back down in the morning and my computer's running fine, but the Amazon program has just closed itself for some reason.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I'm not going to pull this up, but remember, show notes are linked right down below, and you can find them at photorec.tv too. Photoshop. I don't know what his channel is, but this guy on YouTube, created this really nice video that shows you how to customize your Photoshop toolbar, which if you're anything like me, I go to Photoshop more often these days than I used to. And I'm continually frustrated by the fact that I have to like dig into the menu sometimes to find some of the tools that I use. And I'm like, where are they on the toolbar? Didn't they used to be here? And it seems like things move around. So it shows you not only how to customize the toolbar very nicely, but also how to set up a preset so that if it does go to something weird, you can easily get back to your preferred system. Have either of you ever customized your main toolbar in Photoshop?
I just use the I guess the photography workspace. That's it. I've never like actually customized it myself.
Nice.
Yeah, I really haven't either.
Yeah,
but there's a lot you can do. I saw a seminar with Julianne Cost a couple of years ago, and it blew my mind all the stuff you can do to customize Photoshop to be what you want it to be. And she had a very funny and entertaining way of showing you how you can really make it very user friendly.
Cool. So, and David Carr, thank you so much. Somebody asked about Sean asked about cloning out some power lines. And you shared your quick and simple way of kind of copying and pasting to mask and then doing a mask. And I'd never done that before. I always just copy, paste, start to erase the parts I don't want. When I screw up, I undo and then start to erase.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And the mask makes it so much better because you can just paint or unpaint.
It's a game changer. I mean, I use it for so much stuff now. And there was one thing I mistyped. I said vector mask instead of layer mask because for whatever reason it was saying vector mask when I went to Photoshop to kind of make sure I was using the right terminology. But I think I'm going to do a little quick video of just kind of like showing like how it works for me, because I have used that. So I use it for face swaps. I did 3 face swaps on a group photo today, and I use it for every one of those because you can just kind of paint in what you want, and then you can go, oh, I went too far. Click X and just go back and read. It's very user-friendly.
Yeah. Cool. And David, just update us. What do you say, Lightroom and Photoshop, what percentage of your editing time do you spend in one versus the other? And Krystal, I'm going to ask you the same in a second.
It's a great question. Okay, so I just did these family photos. It was kind of a big group. It was 3 families all in one. And so I had multiple types of shots I needed to do. There were some that all I needed to do was get the right tonality and color and crop. I'm not going to go into Photoshop for any of that stuff. There's no reason. But when I have to do the heavy lifting, if there's something really obnoxious that I need to remove, a lot of times I'll just go into Photoshop, quickly get it done. The face swaps. So I would say Lightroom is probably 70% of the time what I'm using. And then the other 30%, it's both. But it seems like it's getting more and more to be like 50-50.
Krystal, how about you?
Yeah, that's similar to what I do. I do my base edits in Lightroom, and then, oops, sorry, lost my earphone. I do my base edits in Lightroom, and then I do just a little bit of coloring in Photoshop, and then I go back to Lightroom. So Lightroom, I'd say about 75.
Sure.
Yeah.
75.
Yeah. That's very similar for me too. I mean, there will be some pictures where I try to stay in Lightroom as much as possible, but more and more, especially lately, I'm doing a lot of the astrophotography, which does require some masking and some layering. And Photoshop is just, I spend a lot of time in Photoshop.
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes I'm in the middle of editing a bunch of photos and I'm like, oh, I don't want to have to go into Photoshop. Like, because it's, then you got to go in there and you got to do all this stuff and bring it back. And then if you mess something up, which is not the end of the world, but it just, more and more I'm like, nope, do it, man. Make it right. Do it.
Yeah.
Like, go for excellence. Why not? Like, nail it,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I probably should do that more on this show as far as especially when cloning stuff out, because it almost always looks fairly terrible in Lightroom. And when you get over to Photoshop, just so many.
Well, maybe occasionally you could
options.
Yeah, maybe occasionally you can do that. I mean, I think just to give people the idea of this is what it looks like without that bud on the flower. In general, I mean, you can kind of do the squint test. Oh yeah, that will look better when I really remove it. But I get it. Yeah.
And then real quick, I just wanted to share, let's see, we do photos from space as that segment at the end of the show often, and we are getting close to the end. And I just wanted to let everybody know that the aurora is starting to show up again. This was from our friend Frank Stelgis up in Alaska. We would go and shoot with him. And this was a picture from just a couple of nights ago. One, it's cool to see Alaska having a sunset now kind of regularly. Bittersweet because it does represent kind of towards the end of summer. But two, oh, what a gorgeous, epic picture. Yeah. Every time we go up, we're freezing to death. And here it is in August taking some pictures of the aurora. So that's pretty darn cool. If you don't follow Frank, you should follow Frank as well. And if you don't go with us up to Fairbanks and photograph with him, you can reach out directly and do that, which is highly, highly recommended. All right, we've got a couple of questions and then we're going to wrap up the show. I had them right here. Tom wants to know if I'm going to be reviewing the new 100-400 from Tamron for Sony soon. Yes, I hope to review that very soon. As I've been saying for a couple weeks, I got a pile of gear that I need to wrap up reviewing, get back, and then I can get my next allotment. And I'll be talking about that. Early reports that I'm seeing about that lens, very, very positive. A really nice budget-friendly alternative that are good. Frank wants to know, did I ever try out the Canon 90D and review it? I never officially reviewed it. I had it in the office for about 2 weeks, photographed with it fairly often. It's very easy to say it is absolutely Canon's best APS-C camera on the market. In some ways, it's a little bittersweet because I'm pretty sure it's going to be their last. I don't think we'll see this line continue on. But it borrows heavily from the autofocusing features of the 7D Mark II, but still has that kind of a little bit more compact and friendliness of the 80, 70, 80D line. And it's a very good camera if you've got all lenses for APS-C. I highly recommend it. Krystal, you started with the T4i. Did you jump right from T4i up to the 5D Mark series, or did you do kind of the 60, 70D?
I did 6D after the T4i.
Okay.
And then what caused you to say, I want to go to the 5D Mark IV from the 6D?
I think it was I'm trying to remember. Actually, I can't remember why I moved up to the 5D Mark IV.
Yeah.
I think it was the touchscreen. I think that was one of the main reasons, touchscreen.
Sure.
I actually still have a 6D and I tried to use it and it's not fun to use. It's not really fun to use anymore.
Yeah, it's also missing the little focus joystick. Yeah. And it has the focus points are pretty clustered as well.
It's hard to go back. I mean, that's why when I got my Z6 mirrorless, I had a D850, which is a phenomenal camera, but I couldn't get used to using both cameras. I just loved all the stuff I could do with a mirrorless. And it's hard to go back.
Pam wants to know, does motion cause the teardrop changes to the stars? They weren't teardrops, Pam. They were kidney beans, okay? Pam and I are good friends. I can give her a little. She was using her tripod and a 2-second timer. Yeah, I don't have an answer. There's a possibility that the camera got a little wiggled, or this is one of the things that I say when we're out photographing. When you've got your camera on a tripod and you're photographing a longer exposure and you know it's going to be epic, this isn't just a test shot. I actually stand really still. I don't move next to my camera because the ground shifts a little, in a lot of places, unless you're on cement, it shifts. And if it is super epic, I'll actually step back away from it during that 2-second timer before it goes off and just let it be alone. And maybe that has no effect at all. Maybe I'm being paranoid, but I want to take that variable out of the equation.
Right.
Debbie Deeringer wants to know, how well do Canon adapters work for the R5? So, Krystal, what are you shooting with lens-wise with your R5?
Yeah, I do have the adapter and the Tamron 35, and it shoots as if it's native to the camera system. So I haven't had any problems with it at all.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing fantastic. So the answer, Debbie, is very, very good. Heather wants to know, Krystal, do you have any tips for photographing our own kids? She's got one is a doll, but the other is rather challenging for me. Oh, no, mine is a doll for other photographers, but is rather challenging for me. Oh, I see what you're saying, Heather. Yeah.
Yeah, that can be hard. I mean, I wish I knew the age, but because my baby, it's really hard to photograph him. I have to chase him around. My older kids, I mean, I just kind of put myself in their world, like I said earlier, and I just kind of, I'm relaxed about it. I don't try to force anything. If you're trying to do portraits, I just say, like, talk to them like you would, like, just have a conversation and then just get in there, like in the in-between moments, and usually get some good stuff out of those. Yeah.
I think Heather's little girl is about kindergarten age, 5, 6. Yeah.
Yeah, that's they want to do their own thing and they don't want to listen. Yeah.
Krystal, have you ever resorted to bribing? And I'll just say before you answer, I have.
Yes. You bring up the tablet for them, they'll do anything. No tablet time.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Tablets, candy. Yeah. It's all fair game when you really want to get that shot. I try not to rely on that, but I have. Yeah.
Sometimes you just, as a parent, you just do whatever it takes.
Right.
I just need this to happen.
Yeah. Kevin wants to know, he's looking at the Sigma 14-24 for Sony, but doesn't know anything about rear-mounted ND filters. He and I have been talking about that lens. I'm really impressed with the Sigma 14-24, the new one for Sony specifically. The other one for other camera manufacturers is very good too. It does use rear-mounted filters, which have either of you ever messed with those rear-mounted filters?
I have
not.
They're gel based, so they're basically these tiny little sheets of plastic, which actually optically they are very, very good, but they are fiddly and they're not much fun to work with. Upside, they're super cheap and affordable. Downside is they're fiddly and not much fun to work with. Kevin, you remind me, you send me a message, something I can point you to a video where I talk about them in more detail and show. I'm not very positive about them in the video because they are so fiddly. But they're a very affordable way to be able to do long exposures with lenses that have, fixed bulbous front elements and lenses.
That's interesting.
Like that. Yeah. And then Kevin wants to know any suggestions for backing up to Dropbox or Google Photos using a cloud-to-cloud sync software or system. Cloud-to-cloud. Yeah. I'd have to research that a little bit. There are some options out there. I feel like none that I know of that are a continually sync. Like, there are some that let you migrate, but that's like a one-time, hey, I don't want to move away from Google Photos to Dropbox or SmugMug to Zenfolio. I don't know. Either? Any?
No. No experience with that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Krystal, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I will. Do you back up all your photos?
I'm in the process. Yeah, I'm not good at that, but I definitely need to, because I have some old hard drives that I was lose all those photos.
Yeah.
It's like there still isn't the perfect system. I mean, I do think the online stuff is it's the easiest. I mean, you just let it do its thing. But for years, it's just been a frustration to try to figure out what's the real way to do this, where I can know that my stuff is always secure, but I don't have to like take a computer science course to figure out how to connect everything. So
yeah.
You'll get
I've been pretty happy with Backblaze and Amazon Photos, even though it crashes from time to time. If you're already an Amazon Prime subscriber, that's a free way to back up all of your raw files, which is pretty huge. So that's worth looking at as well. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the show. Krystal, thank you so much for joining us, especially on short notice.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get you back on the show at some point. Those of you,
thank you.
Good. Those of you who want to keep up with what Krystal's up to in between, you can follow her at Krystal Weir Photography on Instagram, and her website is linked right down below. And again, thank you so much. And you were worried that Asher, your littlest one, was going to wander in, but
I mean, he's called me. I don't know if you heard him. He's called me through the door. But
oh no, he never did.
He did great. He did great.
But I'm a little sad. We didn't get to see him. He didn't make an appearance.
No, it was great having you on though, Krystal. It's your work is great, and your input was valuable, so valuable to the chat and to all of us. So thank you.
Thank you.
And David Carr, thank you so much for hanging out on the show.
Absolutely.
Asking good questions. You can follow David Carr at DavidCarr_photo and see what he's up to, and subscribe to his YouTube channel, which I believe is linked down below as well, because eventually he's going to release this.
Yeah, exactly.
Eventually.
It's coming.
Hey man, I got piles of gear that I never get to, so I understand.
Okay.
It's all good. It's all good. All right, everybody, chat room, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Really appreciate it. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button. And if for some weird reason you haven't subscribed, click that subscribe button as well. I really appreciate that. We'll see you all again next week. Bye-bye.